But let me ask you, you have emphasized on discipline, fiscal discipline target of 5.1% of the GDP. Do you think you will be able to sustain? The fact of the matter is that you've given the direction to battery operated green energy vehicles, research and development in the country, capital investment in infrastructure, skill development. But again, people come up. In infrastructure investments, the private sector has lagged behind. Most of the expenditure has been by the public sector, by the government, which has led to a high debt ratio to the GDP, which could be a red flag for the economy. And on the skill side, while you may say you've trained a lot of people, only 40%, less than 40% of the people have got placements or have got employed. So employment and participation of the private sector and the high debt ratio to GDP, are these the red flag areas for the economy?
First of all, this debt to GDP matter is being spoken conveniently by cherry picking data. Look at the globe, look at the countries, even developed countries. Some of them and their debt to GDP ratios are stunningly different from ours, in the sense they are even 300% more than, they are 200% more than. Japanese, for instance, are also very high. Many developed economies have well crossed the acceptable level of debt to GDP. And in that context, for us to be somewhere in the range of 80 and also be in the range coming downwards, to raise the red flag and say, is this a dangerous situation? And it is not a government which borrowed for no reason. Post-COVID, particularly because many such compensation had to be borrowed for, and also the states had to take that load, and many of our own programs had to be funded without stopping or where it is. So I've given you the comparison between a developed country and an emerging market country like ours, and also showing how we are handling debt. Even today, making sure that your fiscal discipline is not lost, and making sure that we'll reorganize ourselves. And the borrowing that we are announcing is far lesser than what the market expected us to do. So on debt, borrowing, we've been absolutely responsible. That's my first response. The second, you talked about skilling. All over the country, industry is today looking at a complete resetting of its business models. Most of them are looking at how artificial intelligence is going to bring in greater efficiencies. They want to recruit people, but there's also this concern that many of them have still got to acquire a lot of artificial intelligence related skills with which they can be readily recruited. So there is a shift happening. At this time, to pin our argument on one particular set of data or on the other particular set of data is only going to give you a partial picture. So I would suggest that even as all of us are equally concerned about our youth wanting to have greater skills, such skills with which they can get into the market, we should equally accommodate for a period where the readjustment is happening, both for industry and for the labor force as well, for which the government is, as I said in the last budget, that we will establish 3 Institute of Excellence for greater study and work in artificial intelligence. So our attention is there. We want to help industry also to tell us how. I'm very clear that we have had quite a lot of engagement with the NASSCOM to make sure that they give us the kind of skill sets, curriculum for it, and also to make sure that kind of a training is provided. So activities are happening with the advice of the concerned industry itself. The other point that you did raise, that industry, are they coming forward for investment? Is it happening or not? I would say industry, first of all, it took some time for them because, again, going back to the fragile 5 economy time, wasn't there a twin balance sheet problem? Industry's balance sheet, banks' balance sheet were all suffering because banks were made to extend loans on telephone orders from somewhere. and they extended for fear of authority. Many of them couldn't even get the money back. And the companies, many of them, who wanted capital, who wanted infusion of money, couldn't get it from the bank because telephones didn't go for them, they went for others. End of the day, these companies took their time, and with us coming also with favorable interest rates for newer establishments, industries have shown that they've corrected their balance sheet. They've also started new ventures, benefiting from the lower corporate tax that we had brought in. Now, investments from private sector is happening possibly in the newer areas that you talked about. Green hydrogen, electric ecosystem for EVs, also looking at materials, rare earths. So, private sector's investment is happening in newer areas and with greater gusto.
So let me ask you, the political indications that came from the budget, a white paper on the UPA years. Do you think it's even relevant 10 years later to bring in a white paper on the UPA years other than just a little bit of politics ahead of elections? Because if there needed to be a white paper, it probably needed to be put out in the first year of the Modi Sarkar after taking a sense of what had happened in the 10 previous year. But to bring it 10 years later, do you think it's even relevant, or is this just petty politics?
So I'm so happy you asked this question. It is absolutely relevant. It is
10 years later?
Absolutely relevant 10 years later. Because, and I'm glad, even in 2015-16, Honorable PM in a public interview to a television channel said it. There's a lot of call for me to come up with a white paper on the state of finances, which was inherited by me, for instance, PM said. And said, a lot of knowledgeable people have been telling me that I should come up with a white paper to state what we've inherited. But I'll put the interest of the nation first and not do it now. He didn't say anything more. He said doing it now would certainly shatter the investors' confidence and would also make people of India feel shaken up. Their trust and faith would be lost in the systems. He said that far then. Now, with us having done a comparable 10-year period, and during which we had to pull out the economy from that mire, the fragile fire situation, and having brought it to the state where not fragile fire, we are reaching probably within a year or two, globally third largest economy. So with authority and with a sense of responsibility, we'll be able to say it now because we have proven to the world, proven to our own people that institutions and also restoring the Indian economy back to its good health have all happened. So we want to say it now.